means that you're alive.
それより、ティサリアさんの不調の
A genius boy becomes a doctor to help people, but all his patients are female monsters with different personalities and background. Hello and welcome back to our channel iSky. Today we are going to do a recap of the anime series called Monster Girl Doctor, Episode 1. The episode opens on a war-torn battlefield of an ancient war between humans and monsters that has raged for hundreds of years. No one even recalls what the war was started over, but after years of war the exhausted sides draw the conflict to a close. Peace blooms like a flower on the battlefield. Main protagonist, Dr. Glenn, is performing an examination on a cowgirl, which involves both of his hands all over her chest. Soon he finds out that girl is pregnant. After her exam, her significant other Tor enters and expresses his excitement. There are congratulations all around, and they exit stage left to make sure others have heard the good news. Lindworm is a place where humans and monsters live in harmony. Glenn is a human monster doctor with his serpentine assistant Safi. They own a clinic at the grace of Seathol's support. Dr. Glenn is assisted in his work by Safentite, a pink-hued Lamia woman who seems to be an assistant whose capabilities are only rivaled by her jealousy targeted at anyone Dr. Glenn helps. The two soon are shocked when a letter arrives from their old teacher Dr. Seatholi to invite them to the capital. It seems she needs their assistance, and a short carriage ride later they find themselves at Monster Capital. Upon her instruction, Glenn and Safi's skills are required at the arena. The arena holds a variety of fighters, but Tazalia Scythia is one of the most renowned there. She is a female centaur and the heir to the illustrious Scythia Transportation Group, as well as a skilled fighter. Dr. Glenn inspects her and finds that there is nothing wrong with her, but her two assistants are concerned because she does not seem to be performing well in the arena fights. Her physical is fraught with ye old tension, which Safentite does not appreciate, and she expresses as much later that night when she and Dr. Glenn are having drinks. Dr. Glenn wonders if, perhaps, the problem is one a doctor would not recognize.
きりしたことは言えないけど、僕はやっぱり
Tazalia appears to be in peak condition, but her folly is as simple as her hooves needing a fitting. It is unheard of that a centaur goes without shoes, but it turns out that Tazalia is deathly afraid of anyone touching her hooves. The next day, the solution becomes clear. Tazalia comes to the stables to speak to Dr. Glenn, who suggests giving her horseshoes because her hooves are worn down. She objects, but her assistants hold her arms and help Dr. Glenn put horseshoes on her. This turns out to be just what the doctor ordered, and Tazalia wins at her fight the next day. Episode 2. This episode opens on another flashback sequence where we see Safentite and Glenn meeting as children. It turns out she was part of an effort to bridge the gap between humans and monsters and stayed with Glenn and his family for a year. When the war ended, she left his life again where they met once more in medical school. Glenn and Safi take a trip to Mero Waterways, a Venice-like city of merfolk. They hop into a gondola pulled by a merjock and take a trip through the shopping district. After a pleasant montage, they meet a young merwoman Lulala, who beckons them over to try her small shop. While perusing the wares, she mentions the nearby bridge as a lover's bridge, and shows off her musical talents with a quick song. But it's clear that something is wrong with her as she starts coughing. Dr. Glenn and Safentite begin inspecting her, and it turns out she is having an issue with her lungs and gills. Apparently, she spends too much time in the sun, which is drying her out. Dr. Glenn applies a salve to her gills, of course by hand, and recommends she stop being in the sun so much. Lulala is the oldest of 4 siblings, and that simply isn't an option. She has to help her family. Before the conversation can go any further, a local youth falls into the water and Lulala immediately dives in to save him. She does so, but as she is already sick, she soon begins to feel exhaustion and falling in herself.
先生、ルララさんがどこにも
Dr. Glenn realizes something is amiss and dives after her, pulling her up for underwater CPR. Lulala is okay, but in true dramatic fashion, Dr. Glenn begins to fall beneath the waves as well. Thankfully, Safentite pulls them both out of the water and into a boat she brought over. Everyone is saved, and Safentite, who is quite upset at the prolonged hugging going on. Episode 3. Glenn and Safentite have helped a patient using special bio-liquid that allows for internal regeneration. After they finish helping a patient, they heard someone knocking the door. Glenn replied, "Come in," and they found that it is Lindworm City representative Lady Skadi Dragenfeld. Lindworm is overall a fairly new city that began its development after the war between humans and monsters ended. This is the only city that humans and monsters interact with each other. The development in this city is led by a member of the rare dragon race and city council representative Skadi Dragenfeld. Skadi is the most powerful person in the city and she has played an important role. Skadi is with her bodyguard Kunai Zeno, who is injured. One of her hands is broken. Scatty said that her bodyguard has lost her right arm fighting with bandits and they don't know where the arm is. Kunai, assembled person from other people's body parts, definitively draws on magic for how she can still hear the voices of the original owners. Scatty is a low talker type, and Kunai is her overbearing translator, attendant, and bodyguard. And Kunai needs to talk about herself through the words of Lady Scatty. Kunai lost her arm, and she asks Glenn that he will be the one to locate the arm by using his suturing skills to reattach it. She also explained how Kunai managed to chase away the bandits. Glenn asks why did they come to his clinic as Scatty is close to his mentor Dr. Seathal. Scatty replied that she went but she has been rejected and sent to Glenn. Glenn asks what kind of monster is Kunai for his exam. Scatty explains that Kunai isn't a monster, but the product of a medical experiment from the Far East. Kunai doesn't want Glenn's help, since she hates doctors, but she also doesn't want Scatty to know she disobeyed her orders. So Kunai goes out to find her arm. On her way she saw someone who is dressed like the bandits. She decided to follow that person while Glenn and Safentite talk about her arm. Glenn also went out to look for Kunai's arm. Meanwhile, Kunai encounters the person she was chasing. Glenn heard a scream and he went there and find Kunai's leg lying down. Soon Tazalia comes there and she calls Glenn a high-level pervert, peculiar person for calmly handling a severed leg. But Tazalia likes her perverts, and she outright said she fell in love with Glenn again. Glenn did not even react to that.
Damn it.
I want to serve worthy.
People just looking at Dr. Glenn carrying a detached leg with wiggling toes around. They run into Lulala. Lulala found Kunai's arm. Meanwhile, Kunai is crawling with one leg and one foot to reach where the bandits are. Glenn finds Kunai lying down and Glenn is going to reattach Kunai's limbs more completely by suturing the blood vessels and nerves too, not just the muscle tissue and skin. His theory is that this will make Kunai's body more her own than the original owners of the separate body parts. During the treatment they both talk and Kunai tells Glenn that her creator named her Kunai, which means no suffering. Kunai says she doesn't feel pain, but too much pleasure is certainly a problem. And after her treatment she's going to save her punishment for Glenn later. Soon Glenn is done with his treatment and Kunai is able to walk again. When Glenn went back home he has found that Safentite is pregnant. Episode 4, Safi and Glenn's reunion is explained more in depth. The two were reunited in monster medicine school. They were both taught under Seathurley. Seathurley advised Glenn to not pursue a romantic relationship with Safi under the condition they get to have their own clinic. Her reasoning is that they are to be professional. Slavers attacked the clinic for a harpy egg that Arania gave to Safi. Arania claimed she found it. Slavers had been stealing harpy eggs to eat and breeding their species into slavery. Kunai arrives shortly after Glenn and Safi make a safe escape. Kunai took care of the attackers, but reveals that there is more to their operation than what meets the eye. She explains to them that the bandits that attacked the clinic are the slavers who kidnap harpies and sell the eggs as delicates. Kunai has Glenn and Safi join on a mission to take out the slavers. Being by Kunai's side is the safest place to be. Lulala pulls the boat. Glenn, Safi, Kunai and Scatty ride as they talk. Glenn dislikes Scatty's use of Lulala's poverty to make her do dangerous jobs, but Lulala insists it is fine. Glenn and Safi join Scatty and Lulala on the waterways where they are attacked by archers.
That was close.
Just keep your head down!
Tazalia happened to be nearby and managed to fend off the archers, who revealed themselves as fanatics who believe that interspecies cooperation is unnatural. Kunai tries to hold off the slavers while Scatty, Safi and Glenn look for the harpies. There, Illy is suffering while trying to pass her eggs. They had gotten stuck and caused a buildup due to stress. Glenn is left with no choice but to try and help her pass her eggs. Safi reveals that she has been hiding two things from Glenn. She has an incurable illness no one can treat and her family is a line of assassins. When she was sent to live with Glenn's family, she was given the ulterior motive to assassinate all of them. She got her illness after meeting Glenn. Safi is stabbed with a poison dagger and falls unconscious. Safi awakes again at Glenn's side, safe and in a bed. He informs her that the slavers had been arrested and everyone is safe. He also mentions that he wasn't worried since he knows most poisons do not work on Lamias. Turns out that Glenn knew Safi's family was a line of assassins. He reveals one of the servants and their family tried to kill Safi by poisoning her, and Glenn did research in monster medicine to ensure Safi would be fine. Safi tries to pursue Glenn romantically, but falls ill since the poison is not out of her system. Glenn assures her that it is okay and that he should just rest. Safi hints that the incurable disease she has is because of Glenn. And that's all for today, guys. If you liked the recap and want more summaries like this, consider subscribing to our channel.